really overstimulated. Can we turn mine down just a little bit?
I don't know what episode this is, but
7,
well,
maybe
it's going to be in the future anyway. So
8.
Yeah. So we'll start this off. Okay, we're back again for the Chief, Cap, and Chap show. We're minus the Chap again. This is going to be our Father's Day episode, so I'm looking forward to that. And John, tell them who we got here.
Looks like a couple of strangers. I don't know.
Yeah, we got Captain Broom, John Broom's daughter, Abby.
Hi.
And my daughter, Audra. So I thought this was going to be a fun show. Was this your show idea, or was it mine?
Of course, it was mine. No, I'm just joking.
Well, I thought it was a good idea, but thank you guys for following us again. If you want to send us an email, send it at chief.cap.chap@gmail.com. Send us some letters. So, let us see what you think, or if you want some ideas or show ideas, we need that because we're trying to keep this thing a little interesting if we can. This week's episode, we're going to talk about Father's Day, right? So this should air sometime June 14th or whatever, somewhere around in there. I'm not really sure. That may be the wrong date, but
I think that's right.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's on Wednesday.
I think you were testing her just then to see if she really knew when Father's Day was.
I'm just looking forward to it. So, I have it set on my calendar.
Well,
Yeah.
I have no idea when it is. So.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well,
All
we're
right.
of course recording ahead of time, and we're a couple of weeks ahead of time on this, but that's okay.
Yeah.
That's what we got to do. We got to keep that content rolling, so that's what we're going to do. So, anyway, what's a good way to start this? Why don't
I guess just to, just put it out there. We were going to talk to you guys kind of what it's like to be the daughters of a couple of police officers, and both of you guys you've lived this in your entire life, right? Your dad started or before you were born, and Abby was the same way. So you guys have lived this your whole life. So we just kind of want to know what it's like to grow up being the daughters of police officers.
Well, first, why don't you tell us, Audrey, you start. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Okay.
I knew this was coming.
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Audra. I am 22 years old. I just recently got married, and I work at 2 hospitals doing ultrasounds. So that's my life.
That's good.
Yeah.
How about you, Abby?
I'm Abby. I am an investigator at Children's Division and still living with my dad at 23 years old. But I wouldn't change it. So.
Slay.
Yeah.
Me neither. I like it.
So
I like
the
it under
apple
my own
has
roof.
not fell far from the tree, I guess. So
Well, she right after she started working at Children's Division, she had her own place, and I highly suggested that hey, why don't you stay home for a few months until you can kind of get your feet under you financially, and maybe buy a house or something like that. But she says, no, I'm ready to get out. I want to get an apartment, and she literally got an apartment across the street, and I could literally look out my front door and see her down the street. And after about 6 months of that, you were like, yeah, I think I might want to stay home for a little while to save up some money to buy a house. So hopefully I can hang on to her as long as I can. So.
well, that's pretty good. I mean, you're away, but not away, so you got that support if you need it. Or tell him to go home if you're ready for him to go home. Yeah. Yeah.
Enjoy living there while you can, because I just moved out, and it's fun, but the bills start billing, and they add up, and just trying to adult, I guess. I don't know.
That's hard. I was just telling one of our officers I heard just a while ago, he's moving into town, and I was telling him when we first moved into town in 97 or something like that, and man, we didn't have anything then, and lived in a little old apartment, and it wasn't long, and the time goes on, and now we've been here almost 30 years, I guess. So it's kind of crazy how that works, but
Yeah.
So anyway, we want to talk to you guys about what it's like being the daughters of police officers.
Okay.
yeah, I should say you have 2 sisters, right? I have 2 other daughters.
Yes.
We have Elizabeth that's actually here, but she didn't want to be on camera, and we only got 4 mics. So, and then there's Elizabeth's 14, Julie is
Yes.
28, and
So
all right, go.
I'm the middle child.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we all know if you're a middle child what that's like. But
Yeah.
I don't know. What What do you want me to say?
Oh, I don't
Stop
know.
it.
Yeah, what's it? Okay, well, let's just say, what was it like when growing up, knowing that your dad was in law enforcement firefighting? What do you remember about that? What do you remember most?
That's a loaded question. I mean, I think overall, like, I thought it was really cool having a dad being in law enforcement. Like, honestly, like, as a little
It is
kid.
pretty cool. That's cool.
Stop. No. Because I think as a little kid, like, you think your parents are awesome anyways most of the time. And so I think for me, like, I just thought you were like a superhero or something.
Yeah.
So I think for the most part, I thought it was cool. And I mean, I just looked up to you so much in that way. Even at one point, I was like, I'm going to be a police officer. Obviously, that did not happen. But as a kid, you know, I just thought it was like really cool. And like, you know, I always wanted to hear like what you did at work. And I don't know. I always liked it.
We had this routine where I may have told you this, I don't know, but I would get ready in my uniform and I would get my duty belt. And, you know, we have the belt keepers on the duty belt. And I had them all snapped together when I would go home and take the belt off. And so I'm putting that together, and Audrey would run up, and she's like 5 years old or something, you know, and that was her job to unsnap the belt keepers and hand them to me one by one, which is kind of cool when you think about it, you know. So sometimes I get a little because I start putting on my duty, and I get those belt keepers, and I get a little sad. You know what I mean? Because Audrey doesn't live with us anymore. You know? Yeah, it's good times.
I was just thinking about that. I'd hand you the little buckles and
Yeah.
You know, I kind of talked to Abby before we had this podcast, and I think you kind of probably felt the same way about, you know, early on, you think it's pretty cool as far as law enforcement and your dad being a police officer. But I asked her yesterday, I said, at what age was it for you that you still probably realized it was kind of cool, but at what age did you start kind of realizing or feeling the negative parts of being a police officer? Your dad being a police officer, your parent being a police officer. Do you remember what age that was?
I would say it was probably 6th or 7th grade. And I remember it was a holiday, and it really had never affected me that bad because I was just used to it. I didn't know anything other than my dad not being there on holidays. But it was when we had moved back from Cape in Sykeston. We didn't really have anybody here. And I remember it was like the first year my dad was going to have Christmas off. And somebody switched the schedule. So my dad had to work.
Was that me?
No, it wasn't.
oh,
Yeah.
That was the first time I was like, man.
That's always a possibility. I could have done that.
Yeah, you know, and it was weird just because, you know, at that time I was working in patrol division, and sometimes you just get the luck of the draw. You look at the schedule a few weeks earlier and you think, oh wow, I'm going to be off on Thanksgiving, I'm going to be off on Christmas, and it always had fallen where I just had to work, you know, and so I guess about a month or so out, I'm like, oh, cool, Abby, I'm going to be off Christmas Eve and Christmas this year. So she was pretty excited about it. And then about 3 or 4 days before somebody decided that.
It's like,
my
womp,
gosh.
womp, womp.
But,
That's so sad.
And what's funny was, you know, really, I didn't think it was as big a deal as probably what she did because we'd lived, you know,
because you've done that most of the time.
And so if Christmas was on a Tuesday, you know, we would just celebrate Christmas on a Sunday or on a Thursday. But I didn't realize how big a deal it was to actually celebrate Christmas on Christmas. So
I feel like we're in the age of social media, though. So you see families, you know, posted on Instagram and this and that, and then you're at home and dad's
for sure.
working.
Yeah, and I was actually just thinking today, I was like, I don't even know if I've ever gone trick-or-treating with my dad because I don't think you've ever been home for Halloween.
I would normally try to stop by the house, you know, for a little bit, and of course working. It's Halloween and uniform. Sometimes we would go to the fire station a little bit, but then y'all'd go out and I'd go to work, you know. So
yeah, there's a few holidays throughout the year that are like all hands on deck, and I remember Halloween, especially back in the day. It was everybody worked, so it wasn't a matter of like if you just happened to be off that day, you were off. It was one of those all hands on deck kind of things.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, there's a lot of kids out, you know, obviously it's Halloween, lots of traffic. I mean, it's one of our biggest fears is that, you know, we're going to have an accident. So we try to watch those busy areas, have officers in them. And then you got the regular shenanigans, the crime and all that stuff that you got to keep up with. So we need most everybody working. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
You know, you brought up social media, and, you know, I guess I got a question for you as far as like, what's it like to see things on social media that are posted that are negatively towards the police department, or even people that you know, or even your dad, or some of your dad's friends, that are some negative things that you see on social media, and you know that that's not completely accurate. How do you feel? What kind of responses did you have to that?
I don't know. That's a tough one, because it's like, he's not just a police officer to me. Like, he is my dad. And I feel like, to me, like, I see all of the things that he does behind the scenes, like even at home, like he's worried about work and he's working on these things, like, you know, away from the office. And, you know, you just see them trying so hard to, like, you know, improve the community. And then I'm scrolling through Facebook and then I see a comment, well, Chief McMillan, and, you know, and it's like,
they're out there. Yeah.
Yeah, they're out there. And, you know, it's just, it's sad because people only see like a very small piece of the picture, and that's just how it is, unfortunately. And for me, I think I just try and, like, I know who my dad is, I know his intentions, and I just try to ignore it. And, you know, I try to be there for him as best as I can, and, you know, can't let it get to you, as hard as it is. But
yeah, I know I've told Abby before in the past, she's a lot like me. Sometimes she can get a little upset at things sometimes. And I've told her before in the past, I'm like, I don't care what you see on there and what it says, for the love of everything, please do not comment, you know. And in fact, I've recommended, hey, don't go down that social media, Facebook post rabbit hole. Don't even read that stuff. So
it's hard.
It just makes it worse. It just does. I don't know.
I don't know, but my dad, I can't play about him. So
yeah.
It's hard for me to look at that and not have anything to say.
Yeah.
And I think I look, you know, at all of the guys here, especially that I've known for my whole life, in the same light. I know who they really are, and they're more than the uniform. And
right.
I think, you know, it's one of the reasons we wanted to do this podcast, I think, is it gives people an opportunity to see us at a different perspective, you know. I mean, just as, instead of out there in uniform on a vehicle stop or at a crime scene or trying to deal with Halloween stuff or whatever. You know, I thought it was, you know, John and I talked about this for a year and a half, and I think it's, you know, we get to bring family members in here and people see we have family members, and it sounds silly to say.
Like, you're a human.
Yeah.
And
yeah, we are actually people.
Yeah.
That sounds weird to say, but I mean, you know, people just, they have things that happen. They have their own perceptions or maybe a negative experience. And the thing that they do, particularly with the police, is they say the police, and not Officer Jones or Officer Smith or whatever. It's, you know, it'd be weird if you did teachers that way or doctors that way. It doesn't really happen that way, you know. Of course, we do have the standard, and we try to hold a standard, but we are human, and people make mistakes sometimes. People have bad days even here, and, you know.
Yeah.
So.
And really, on social media, I think people like to put a huge spotlight on all the negatives. And so I think it's good to try and get the good things out there, and because you are doing community events, and I mean, those are some of my favorite things to go to. And
well, we had Mother's Day a couple weeks ago, and we had Faison Fobbs on here. Now, you went to school with him, didn't you?
Kind of.
He was a little older.
Yes. Yeah. And like, he also went to Arkansas State, and I went there. I think he was always graduating by the time that I was coming in. Yes. Yeah. So I've always kind of looked up to him. I've always thought he was kind of like a cool kid, you know, athlete, good. He played like basketball, right?
Yeah, and football. Yeah.
And I've always loved his mom. I mean, both of them, I think, are just amazing people.
Yeah.
And
you don't get better than her.
No.
So, Abby, tell me about growing up with John, about this guy. What's that like?
Man, I feel like we're very similar, so.
That's scary.
We butt heads a lot, yeah.
Oh, no.
Just to bring in this perspective, I mean, to me, I guess I'm biased. My dad is one of the most hardworking, best dads in the whole entire world. So it's hard for me to even put into words. Growing up was always good. I mean, it was hard. We had our trials and tribulations, that's for sure. But, you know, I had him as a single dad. It was me and him. And to this day, we've got each other like no other. So,
Yeah, we've definitely had some battles, and it's funny, you know, especially, you know, any person, teenage kid growing up, you know, they have these emotions and hormones and all these things, and they can't really explain or control a lot of them. And you know, I think probably that led to a lot of our battles was it just me and her. So there wasn't any sort of like, hey, couldn't necessarily tap out and let mom take over. Yeah, you know, it was both of us. So
you need more kids is what you need.
Yeah, I think any single parent would probably agree that raising one kid by yourself is the equivalent of about probably 4. So
oh gosh,
it is harder because I grew up. There's 4 of us when I grew up, and you know, 2 boys, 2 girls, and me and my brother spent a lot of time. There are times that, you know, all 4 of us would, but if you don't have somebody else, then that's your job. That's what you got to entertain and, you know, do all that. I mean, 24/7.
We joke a lot of times, you know, as far as like pigtails and ponytails and makeup and stuff like that. Abby, tell them actually who raised you.
YouTube.
I don't know if you heard that or not, but she said YouTube. So
you got to maybe lean up a little bit more.
She would ask me a question, and I'd be like, you know, or makeup or hair or something. I'm like, listen, I don't know. YouTube it, and so
you're like, I'm out. Just internet. You know,
she dressed you. I don't know. You always joke before. I used to dress you in t-shirts and gym shorts for quite a while before you realized, I probably should try. Yeah. But I did buy you a pair of Rock Revival jeans. I think in the 6th or 7th grade, which was pretty cool.
Miss Me jeans.
Oh, Miss Me jeans.
That sounds more like it. Yep. Yeah, I couldn't imagine if my dad was having to do my hair and stuff. I think I'd be pretty scared if he was doing that.
I did that some, but it's kind of hard to do. You know?
Yeah, my dad, I think, has always wanted a son, and some time along the way, he kind of made me his son. Yeah, somehow
we joked about that.
Yeah, like he would have me mowing the yard, and he was trying to teach me how to drive stick shift with the Jeep. Yeah, like just things I think that just showed that he wanted a son.
Which she did. She knows how to do that. She's good.
Yeah.
Both and did the yard very well. And then she went off to college, and I was like, guess I got to do this again, you know?
So.
I think those are all really valuable lessons in life, too, though, you know?
Well, you know, you can tell how much we spent around. I'll tell this story. It's, you were 5 or 6 years old, and I had I think I've told you this, but I had some speakers I was setting up in my house. Had the receiver, and I accidentally, you know, we're behind the speakers trying to plug it up. She's holding the flashlight, okay? So she's holding the flashlight, and I get the speaker wire and put it, and the receiver's on. I didn't know it was on, you know, and the speaker popped. It was pretty loud. I mean, it was a big speaker. And it kind of startled me. It startled her. She's probably 6 years old, and she says, Dad, what the hell are you doing? And I said, I tried. I guess what did you just say? And then I was thinking, I guess, I wonder where she learned that from. You know, that's her mom. Her mom did. Yeah, I'm sure it wasn't me.
Yeah, I feel like I probably did kind of the same thing to Abby. I mean, she can bait her own hook. She can take her own fish off the line. She throws like a boy. She don't throw like a girl, right? And and I think that's important that you show all your kids, regardless if they're a boy or a girl, how to do everything, because you know what? Someday you're going to move off by yourself, and you know how to do all those things. So.
Yeah, valuable skills.
So, Abby, do you get like really paranoid when he's going out and working midnight shifts and stuff like that? Do you worry about him in dangerous situations and stuff?
Yeah, sometimes I still can't sleep. I would say it's just a waiting game, you know, because you never know at the drop of a hat what could happen while he's out there.
Right.
And it's scary.
Maybe it's easier now that you're a patrol captain. You were a lieutenant not too long ago when you were out there, you know, hitting the streets hard. So
Still goes out and works, though, all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I was still living at the house, I mean, there were many nights where, like, I would stay upstairs, and that's where Dad's, like, work closet was. And so I would just be sleeping, and then I would like see the light flick on, and then he's going up there and getting dressed at like 2 a.m. to go out, and you're like, oh, like I wonder what it is now, because
Yeah.
if you're getting up in the middle of the night, you know,
It's not good.
It's not good. No, we're not going out for fun.
It's not good. That's for sure.
Usually something bad. So
Did he ever
Yeah.
really tell you what was going on, or did you find out about it in the newspaper or on the news the next day?
yeah, so usually it was the next day, and then I mean, and sometimes it would be, you know, you go out at 2 a.m. and you're not getting back until 2 o'clock the next morning. You know, like
Right.
it's an all day thing sometimes. And so, I mean, it wouldn't be maybe a couple days until I hear what happened. And I mean, the other part of it is you don't really want to come home and talk about it either, you know, because
No, because you just you talk about it so much at work, and
Yeah.
especially when I was doing, and you've done some of this public information, you're explaining to everybody, and then everybody you run into ask you what happened, and you're explaining
Right.
it to them, and then you get home and you're just like, geez, you know. And of course, your family wants to know, and you're like, I don't want to talk about it. Yeah,
yeah, you want to be like, so like,
Yeah.
are you okay? Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, you kind of have to have a mindset of, you know, he wants to come home and just take a break, and you know, you don't want to live it over again, basically. But
I feel like we got Life 360, and I use it more on my dad than he uses it on me. And so the minute he'd leave the house and I'd get the alert, I'd call and be like, where are you going? I
yeah,
don't know. So I kind
love
of would
that.
know, but if I didn't know,
Yeah.
he wasn't coming home and talking about it, and I knew better than to ask. So
right, yeah, yeah. Sometimes I would learn more from a news report on Facebook than from him himself, but that's just how it is.
So you ever? I mean, you guys both. Maybe you're 23. So you look back on that. You ever wonder what it would be like if you didn't have a parent that was in first responder, or would that be different? Or you ever wonder about that? But
I think that's hard for me to answer.
Yeah,
I
'cause
think
it's all you ever known.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
have a parent that worked a different job. I just had
Yeah.
him. So I literally have no idea what
yeah,
it's
Right.
like to have a normal schedule, normal.
yeah, and he's been
job.
doing this for over 30 years, or almost 30 years anyway. So that's all you've ever known.
Right.
That's all you've ever known. Because
'Cause-
I was doing it 5 years, I think, before you were born. you know,
Yeah.
so.
Because, like, every job is stressful, of course, in some way. But I think for police officers, like, it's just different because, like, you may leave and not come back home. And so now I just have, like, kind of more of that mindset of, you know, it is scary. So, I don't know. If you weren't doing it, I don't know. I guess you wouldn't be as stressed, maybe.
Way
I
that
don't
stressed.
know.
I have been lately. We've been so busy. We got a lot of good
Yeah.
things happening for sure. But
It's always something.
You know, one thing that I was thinking of when we were talking just now was, you know, of course, you guys worry about us, but us as police officers, first responders, we worry about you guys because we kind of know really what's going on out at night.
Yeah.
So, what is it like having a dad as a police officer, a first responder, and say it's 11:30 or 12 o'clock at night, and they're wanting to know where you're at and what you're doing?
Well, I can say when we were visiting Arkansas State for the first time, just looking at campus, one of the first questions my dad has was, so how's the relationship between the students and the university police officers? And I was like, oh my gosh, here we go. And so they were like, you know, we have like these buttons you can press, like if something happens on campus. But I mean, there was just lots of talks about, you know, don't be out late, don't
Right.
always, you know, stay aware of your surroundings. And so
change up your
never-
routes. Yeah.
yes, never roll down your window for anybody asking, you know, for help or something. You never know what they're up to. So many things. I'm always locking my car door. Like as soon as I get my car door, like I lock it. So it's just little things like that. I think he's kind of instilled in me.
Yeah. Well, it's always good to hear because she's like, I know I'm out late, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And I'm like, oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
And by the way, the Arkansas State University Police are great. They've helped you out
Yes.
numerous times, I know.
Yes.
And
Yes, they are good. 10 out of 10.
Yeah,
They've jumped my car a couple times, and
super group of people there.
yes, they're great.
I remember right after Abby got her driver's license, you know, she had a curfew, and then depending on what she was doing at night, you know, she might be able to stay out a little bit later. But those nights, of course, we had each other on Life 360, and I'd see her out driving around, and I'd be like texting her, like, "What are you doing? You need to come home."
Yeah.
And I'd always get back, "Well, I'm 17, I'm 18 years old."
I thought I knew more than what I I did for sure.
And so she would be a little bit annoyed about that, but I would always be like, "Listen, you know, I completely trust you and your judgments and know that you're not going to be out doing anything stupid, but I just don't trust other people." So what was it like?
I think it made it 10 times harder having you as a police officer during that stage in my life because I felt like I always had something to prove because people would say, "Well, your dad's the police. You can't do this. You can't do that." So I was like, "Oh yeah, I have to prove my point here. I'm not listening to him." And now, looking back,
You're like, watch this.
if I wouldn't have been driving around the whole time I was in high school, I'd probably have a lot more money now because that was all I did. And
Yeah.
caused you a lot of gray hair then. So
What was it
sorry.
like whenever this made you mad a few times? So what was it like whenever somebody'd send me a picture or you out at, say, the rodeo? One of the officers that would send me a picture of you hanging out at the rodeo, and then I'd send it to her.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I don't have fears. So you would send it back to me, and I'd walk up and be like, "What the heck, man? Why are you sending my dad pictures of me?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to live my life."
That is funny.
Yeah.
She had a really good relationship with a lot of the guys that worked here because, you know, she would, whenever I came back here, you know, you were what, 8, 9, 10 years old or something. So she'd spend,
Right.
if she had a homework assignment due and needed some help, she would come to the police station, sit in the report room. And a lot of these guys that, you know, that've been here for 10 or 12 years, Sergeant Danforth, Hunsaker, Haskins, Worsham. I don't know if there's probably several more that I'm not mentioning, but every one of these guys you've known for the last probably 12, 13, 14 years. And they call you, what does they call you?
Their niece.
Their niece.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was interesting when you were talking about the negativity that you were even offended for the other officers that you knew here. So, I mean, that says a lot, I think. So,
Yeah, it really, you know, everybody always talks about working here is like a family. And then really, in reality, it really was. You know, Henry Franklin, I think, is another one, you know, that that is basically like a big brother to you, you know, or a big uncle, you know. So.
yeah. Well, and that's why they're doing that. John never asked anybody to take pictures, but they'd see like, "Oh, there goes your daughter. Look,
Yeah.
you better keep an eye. We're keeping an eye on her." You know,
It's funny
Yeah.
now, too,
Yeah.
working as an investigator at Children's Division. These people that have known me since I was, I don't know, 9, 10, 11 years
Yeah.
old, and I'm going to an investigation, and I have to call dispatch, and then they come out there, and they're like, "What the heck? Like, this should not be happening."
right. So is that? I mean, it seems like obviously, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but what your dad was doing has done influenced you to do that
Definitely.
job.
Definitely.
What do you like about that?
Oh, that's a loaded question.
That's a hard job. I
It's-
mean, Broom and
is.
I shared an office, you know this, in Detective Division, and we worked with Children's Division workers all the time. So I know it's a difficult job.
It is hard, and there's good days and there's bad days. I'd say, you know, my supervisors and everyone will talk. The investigations part is like the hardest part because you're not seeing the good stuff in months
Right.
down to come. But
Right.
just knowing that you might be making a little bit of difference in somebody
Yeah.
that doesn't have a voice is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I think that's
I
the
think
best
there's
part.
probably few things that are worse than watching those young kids being victimized. You know, I mean, the innocent being victimized. If that doesn't motivate you then you don't need to be in this job or that
Right.
job, you know, so.
Definitely. And it's cool now, too, because when I go to meet somebody or meet a family and then they look at my badge or I say, "I'm Abby Broom," they're like, "You're John Broom's daughter?" I'm
Yeah.
like, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing?
Yeah, you couldn't have a name like Johnson or something like that.
Right.
Most of the time it's good, though, right?
Yeah.
There's probably not many Brooms running around.
There's kind of a unique name.
Yeah.
You know, something you said when we were this morning, you told me, I think it was a call that you'd went out on. I don't know if it was today or yesterday. She's on call this week. The person that you talked to said that you were like the only person that's really ever listened to her.
And just hearing things like that, too. And I think, you know, kind of like the police officers, I guess, Children's Division workers, we don't have the best reputation either. You know,
Right,
we take kids and that's what they say. And so when you hear somebody saying, especially an adult saying that you're making a difference and thank you for actually
Right.
listening to me,
Yeah.
it's very
That's good.
impactful.
That's awesome.
So, Audra, how did you end up in the medical field? How did that work out?
Well, for some reason growing up, I just kind of knew I would be in healthcare. I mean, it always starts with you want to help people. You just don't have to figure out, what that looks like. For me, like, it was just research and different things that were out there. I've always just loved science, and with ultrasound, I feel like it just kind of gives me that opportunity to be that one person in the hospital who, for my patients, give them, someone to talk to while I'm doing their exam, and then just also helping find the answers for them, if I can, whether it's finding a mass in them or anything that could potentially be life-changing for them, and then just being a friend with them during that moment. I mean, I only see these people for maybe an hour at a time and probably will never see them again, but I love my job, and, I get a little bit of that, on-call action every now and then, not to y'all's extent probably, but but I do like it and couldn't see myself doing anything else.
Well, Audra's always had a big heart, and the common theme here is service to others, which is applicable because that's kind of what this podcast is about. We talk about the good things that people do and the sacrifices they make and to serve others in the community, so that's important. But I can remember, I got to tell the story. So Audra is going to college, and she's working at a clinic, and she's got clinicals that she's got to go to, and she's doing, got the job and everything, and she's encountering what it's like to work with people. You know what I mean? And so people are people. I don't care what you do. People are people. And Audra calls me one time. She's like almost in tears, because she had a bad day. I guess maybe working at the clinic or something. And she says, "Dad, how do you do it? I don't even know how." And I'm like, "How do I do what? Like these people, they're so salty, And I was like, "Well, baby, that's just people. That's the way they are. I mean, you'll get more used to that, and you got to try to learn to communicate through that stuff. I mean, they're not bad. That's just the way people are,
Yeah.
So, but it was, I always laugh because she's like, "How do you do it?" But,
mind you, I have called Dad multiple times from college, like in tears, pretty much, just through life circumstances. And unfortunately, like when you're going to a police station or a hospital or anything like that, it's usually not good. And so, you're seeing these people when they're not in their best moments. And
well, I'll tell you, on being a first responder, you can relate to this, I'm sure. When your daughter calls you and she's upset, and your mind goes so far of so beyond what's actually happening. She's just upset something just happened, but like, who's dead? What's happening? I mean, it scares me when she calls me like that. I'm like, oh man, you gotta please don't.
Yeah, he did teach me how to talk calmly on the phone.
Yeah,
I think the first time I called you crying was from when I got dropped from a sorority house.
Yeah,
I was crying. I could barely get the words out. And when I did, he was like, "Audra, you've got to stop. Don't ever do that."
Not long ago, we were at a conference or something like that, and I got one of those late night calls, and Broom was in his hotel, and I went down there and knocked on the door, and I was trying to think, as one of his officers, that had something happen. I was trying to think, how am I going to tell him this? And there for a minute, I just kind of stood there, and he was in this panic, and he started doing the same thing. And after we got all done, he says, "Listen, next time, knock on the door and just blurt it out. Don't keep me in suspense." And I was like, I did that to him, so.
Yeah. What you said was, "Hey, I got to talk to you about something." I'm like, what?
Yeah, and it's like, 11:30 or something like that.
Yeah, in a strange hotel in the middle of nowhere. And and so we went to an event last week or so, and I told him we were walking back to the hotel. I said, "Now listen, if you come to the hotel room at 11:30 tonight and telling me something's happened," I said, "just when I open the door, just tell me exactly what it is right out of the gate." So
yeah,
I think he thought I was trying to hit on him or something.
That's funny.
Yeah, but I think that's the common theme in that, is the service to others. So I could see that being a difficult job. People coming in and they're concerned about their health and all that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it can be sometimes. And for me, like with imaging, we're not doctors. We can't diagnose people. And like people have so many questions. But, you have to be like, I can't say anything, but like I'm here for you, and like I want to help, but I can only do what my job is.
Yeah.
So.
And you can't talk about that at all.
No.
I mean, you can't even go.
No, gosh, no.
That don't look too good, but I can't talk to you about it. So.
Yeah.
I think kind of a common theme here, and something that I think about when you deal with people, is two things. One, active listening. Just taking kind of like what you said. A lot of times, sometimes maybe people feel like they've never been heard, but just listening.
Yeah.
Stop. Slowing down what you're doing and listening to what they're saying, and then two, empathy. Active listening and empathy, I think, really go a long way when you're dealing with people.
Right.
Sure. Now, sometimes you do reach an impasse, obviously, and I'll say that to the point where. I'll spend some time talking to somebody, and I may just come out and say, listen, I think we probably reached an impasse here.
Yeah. Well, Abby, you probably deal with quite a bit of conflict, I would imagine, because when they see Children's Division show up at their house, and they probably already know the allegation's been made, and they know this is happening, and here you show up, they're probably not very happy.
Right.
And they may be mad at a relative or a friend, but you're probably catching all that, I imagine.
Yep, and I understand. I think I'm the type of person to put myself in their shoes, and I would be scared too if Children's Division came to my door. I mean,
right.
I think what's important in my job, and I guess all of us, is just I know I'm there for a reason, and I have to get these words out of this person's mouth, but just taking the time, that's not my priority. I'm going to make this person feel like a person and not like a criminal or a perpetrator. Like they're a human being and they have feelings. And 9 times out of 10, something that's happened has happened to them before, and it's just a cycle. And so it's important to take all of that.
So you spend a lot of time and effort trying to de-escalate their emotional state. Yeah,
definitely.
That's what cops do all the time. I mean, you probably do that some too. Yeah.
Well, I was actually thinking today, having a police officer as a dad, like when I was a kid and I was like in trouble for something, when Dad would like talk to me, he would talk to me as if I was like about to commit a crime or something. Like, and he would always point out like my lie indicators. I don't know if you did
You
this.
are 100%. I think you.
You didn't lie much. You were.
No.
Yeah.
And most of the time I was telling the truth, but you would always be like, if I was saying no like this, you would say, why are you nodding your head yes? Like, that's a lie indicator.
Oh, the big one is the nonverbal, like,
Yes.
Like she did not speak.
So I don't know if you did that to Abby,
Yes,
but
for sure.
when you would do that, it would make me so mad because most of the time I was telling the truth.
Yeah.
But so that's always funny.
The big one I always picked up on is the over-explanation.
Oh, yeah.
You're over-explaining right now. Okay,
Yeah.
the truth is a really simple thing. It's very short and sweet to the
Right.
point, but when it gets
That's
to be
true.
really elaborate, you're like,
Was where they start out. See, what happened was there I was. Next thing I knew. Yeah.
and
That's
yeah.
funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
You couldn't get much past this guy.
I think I reminded you that a few times. I'm like, listen, do you forget what I do all day long and like talk to people that aren't necessarily being truthful with me? Like, just tell me the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you did for the most part. I mean,
I would lie, but then I would tell the truth like 5 minutes later because I couldn't do it.
Right. I feel like I mean, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I would always try to give the rope. I wanted them to learn independence. You know what I mean? Now, I didn't want to be taken advantage of either, but, as long as you're doing what you're saying you're going to do, then I'm probably going to stay out of your business, within reason. But,
Yeah.
that's really always,
Or
sometimes
just like, I'm not sure that's right.
I think that was
We'll
kind
just
of
leave it there.
my parenting style was I always felt like, it's best just to be open, open and honest all the time. We all know our kids are going to screw up from time to time, but always as a parent, let your kids know, hey, you can come to me. I know you're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
The important thing is to come to me and don't feel like you can't and not trust me.
Right.
And we can always work through it. I think it's really, especially in this day and age, for sure.
Like, my wife and I had that, Audrey was going to college, and I said, hey, the best thing we can do is maintain, when she gets in trouble and she needs to call somebody, that we have the relationship going, that she will make the call to us. You know what I mean? And other than that, she's on her own, and if she doesn't call us, that's when she might make some bad decisions. Who will she call?
Right.
And are they going to be, so that was really important to me. So
Yeah. And I definitely did call y'all multiple times.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, y'all would be the first time I got pulled over in Sykeston, by the way. I was so scared.
Yeah.
Because I think that's one thing, like, probably some people think that, like, we wouldn't get pulled over or, like, whatever. But I did get pulled over.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of rolled through a stop sign. I did not mean to at all. A police officer was right there. And I was like, he pulls out right behind me. And, like, he pulls me over, of course. And he's like, okay, like, license, registration. And I'm like, okay. And so, like, move my hands off the wheel. And, like, I give him the stuff. And he's like, is your dad Chief McMillan? And I was like, yes. Yes, he is. And he's like, well, who's going to tell him, me or you? And I was like, I don't know. So he gave me a warning.
Sometimes that's worse. It's like,
yes.
I mean.
So he gave me a warning or whatever. And I go home and I immediately went back to my dad's room. And I'm like, I got pulled over for the first time. And I tell him where. And he's like, I just sent out an email telling the officers to keep a closer look at those stop signs. People have been rolling through them.
Yeah.
So thanks. But yeah.
Abby actually got a speeding ticket. I guess it was last fall. And you know what? I said, were you speeding? She said, yeah. But she said, Dad, it dropped from 45 to 25 just so fast. I had no idea that the speed limit dropped that fast. And I was like, well, I said, were you speeding when you got pulled over? She's like, yeah. And you ended up paying it. I didn't help her at all. And, because I mean.
Been there.
Yeah. and the thing is now my insurance is more, so I'm paying higher insurance, but
yeah.
I think you learned a lesson though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you most proud of, Abby, when you think about your dad working in law enforcement and firefighting and all that stuff?
Was it the time we were at Walmart and the guy said, your dad tased me?
Yeah, I was scared. I was like, oh gosh.
No.
I would say kind of going back to, I guess, doing the job I do now when I meet people that know my dad and them telling me that he made an impact on their life or he changed their life. And
That's
I know
good. Yeah.
we were at the back to school thing down at Malone Park. And I remember that guy walked up to you and you didn't even recognize him. And he was talking about how you changed his life. And I think that's just so cool to know my dad, which he's my superhero, but to know that he has impacted so many people's lives for the better, maybe sometimes for the worse, but he's just so humble. And when people ask me if he is my dad, like, I'm proud to say yes. Like, that is my dad, and he's my ride or die. So,
Yeah.
What about you, Audra?
Yeah, definitely that. I did have a patient once that was from Sykeston, and they kind of got around to, my dad was the chief, and he was like, oh. And I was like kind of nervous because sometimes it's not for a good reason, of course. But he was like, love your dad. Like, he's such a great guy. And so that stuff makes you feel good because, I never knew that person before that interaction. And I also just love seeing the things that, Dad tries to do, like, for the community, like the events. And I love seeing, like, seeing him on the news talking about something cool or an article or even just watching these podcasts now. And so those are my favorite things, just seeing the positivity and all that. So.
So does your dad tell, like, dad jokes since it's Father's Day? Is he bad about that?
Dad is the worst at dad jokes. They're horrible.
You guys have got to be, like, planning them together or something.
It's all the time around here. It's just all the time. And then you get Captain Zach Haskin in the mix, and man, he was on here, and I think he was a little nervous, but that guy's always joking around.
Yeah.
But you never know what that guy's going to say.
I know.
I mean, I'm kind of that guy. You never know what I'm going to say, but
I was a little nervous, yeah. To tell you a little bit about him, he's got the DuckTales ringtone on the DuckTales show. Woo, that's his ringtone. If I'd give you any idea of what he's like,
Well, the guy has his own petting zoo at home, so
he does have his own petting zoo. Yeah.
Is that who we gave, like, our chickens to and stuff?
Yes. That's
and the
right.
rabbits?
He took the rabbits.
Okay.
I think the chickens went to somebody else, but he did take the rabbits. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, and and Zach, man, so as far as somebody knowing, you think somebody that silly would not know what he knows because he knows a lot about fire code. I mean, firefighting, HSRT, fire trucks, his knowledge on fire stations. He's been instrumental on designing all that stuff, doing a tremendous job.
You know, one of the things I've thought about DPS, and of course, you guys are a lot younger, so you don't remember this show, but I'm sure your chief does. But MASH.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
MASH,
I feel like DPS is kind of like MASH. You know, they always were joking around and having fun, and everything was really lighthearted. But when it came time to get the job done,
Right.
you know, everybody was on the same page, and everybody was professional and doing what they needed to do. But in between the downtime, you just never knew. You just never know what somebody's going to say or do, or what joke, prank, or somebody's going to play. So I feel like, and which really in this line of work, I think you probably kind of need that balance too.
Yeah. I always get disappointed when I told a joke coming out here, and then Audra's like, haha. And I'm thinking, I thought that was hilarious. You know, she's like,
I've
I
learned
laughed.
the most important thing about jokes is it doesn't really matter if the other person thinks it's funny, but if you get a chuckle out of it, that's all that matters. A good joke, if it makes you laugh, it's a good joke.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell this joke. All right. So it's a clean joke, you know. But there's a guy in the bar, and he's looking dejected at his beer, you know, and the bartender comes up and says, hey, what's wrong? You know, are you okay? He says, me and my wife, we got in a fight, you know. She's mad at me, told me she wasn't going to talk to me for a month. And then bartender's like, well, you know, maybe that's not bad. You get some peace and quiet and whatever. He says, yeah, looking at his drink, today's the last day.
I see what you mean now, Audra.
This is what I live with, guys.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, he tells jokes sometimes, and I just don't
laugh.
get
See,
it. I don't
none
get
of
it.
y'all laugh. I laugh. It's hilarious to me.
I just stare at him like I'm waiting for the rest of it. I don't get it.
No, that's it. Yeah. I think you're not listening. I think you're, you know, you need.
Well, usually they're too long, too.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed that? His jokes are really
These are
long,
short.
and I lose interest in about
Yes.
15 seconds.
Yeah.
We'll let it slide since it's Father's Day today.
Yeah. You got to have one dad joke on the Father's Day podcast.
Your turn.
Do you know why you don't take your dog for a walk in the rain? Might step in a poodle. But see, that's a quick and easy joke. Everybody got a chuckle out of it. His are too long. I lose interest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like detail, you know.
He does.
So, Abby, let me say, let's say someday you get married, have a family. You think that this experience growing up in the first responder world that your dad did as a child, you think that'll influence the way you raise your kids?
Definitely. I feel like I've picked up habits like sitting facing the door, things like that. And those will probably be passed on to my kids too. But I definitely feel like it's shaped the way that I'll have my family. Which I always said that when I was grown up, I was going to have a normal job with a normal schedule and this, that, and the other. So, and my kids weren't going to have holidays where this, but here I am. And
on call this weekend.
Yeah. So we'll see. I guess the apple doesn't fall from the tree. So.
What about you?
I think it will affect when I have kids. I mean, I can't imagine having a kid right now. But I agree, like there are some habits that I think I've already picked up and just now like living on my own and just like little things. And I think through situations I've noticed, like thinking through like worst case scenario, like what should I do to like prepare, and if I'm driving somewhere, I want to make sure I have a full tank of gas, just little things that I think about. But yeah.
Well, you got any questions you want to ask her?
No, I think I know you guys were nervous when we first started out, but it wasn't that bad, was it?
I guess not.
I got a question. So, there's been a lot of changes here. Have y'all noticed the changes as time go on with DPS and the community differences since years ago? Maybe that's too hard of a question?
That's a loaded question.
That is, because you're like a teenager. You're probably not paying too much attention to that.
I feel like, yes. I feel like there's more outreach from the police department, more community connections and the events that they do. I don't know. It's hard because you...
Well, let me ask you a better question. This is a better one. If you wanted to clear up any misconceptions or misperceptions about police officers today, what would that be and what would you say?
Go do a ride-along.
Go do a ride-along. That's good advice.
Yeah.
I like that. people need to do that. I mean, because they don't understand what we do. You know, I mean, they don't understand the challenges that we have. The ride along, which, by the way, you can do. Just sign a piece of paper and pass through a little small background. It's not a big deal. And come ride with an officer. I mean, we would encourage that, and we'd enjoy it. It makes for a better experience for that shift for that officer, you know, because they get to show what they do and what they're passionate about. Who wouldn't enjoy that?
You know,
Yes.
you talked about. I'm sorry. You talked about community outreach, and I like that you said that, because I think that's really, since you've been chief, that's really been one of your big focuses. I mean, of course, before you came chief, you were spearheaded CIT and crisis intervention for Sikeston in our area, but after you became chief, I mean, just you've really put an emphasis on learning what resources we have available. You know, whether it's Spread Hope Now or Hope 180. DAOC. I mean, I know I'm forgetting some of them, but I think it's huge as an officer to know what resources we have in a community, because every community's resources are different, you know, and you know, a lot of nonprofit resources in Sikeston. I think that we do a really good job of linking people with those services for sure.
I think it's how we're gonna do better, you know, because but when I was an officer and you'd run into situations and it's not a criminal type situation, and you can't really, I mean, they really need like maybe Boot Hill Behavioral Health, maybe they need Spread Hope Now, or they need places like that. You know, they might need help from Children's Division, which you know, just facilitating resources, even though it's not what we do, is a service that if we have the knowledge and can work with these other agencies, really improve, and then we walk away from that with a good positive interaction from that community member, even though we're not doing the work, because we're just saying, hey, you need to call these people. These people do tremendous things and they can solve your problem. Just doing that is a good.
Yeah, really. And two, you think about, you know, if you get somebody some services that they need, whether it's food or housing or whatever, potentially you stop them from going out and committing other crimes to provide for those means.
Yeah, and if it's not crime, maybe you just maybe it is mental health, and you're helping them resolve that issue, and you're getting less calls, which helps you focus on the crime. You know, so what would you clear up, Audrey? Your misperceptions, conceptions, or whatever.
I don't know. I think growing up, like when I was a little kid, like everybody would be like, "Oh, Audrey's dad's a police officer. Like you better watch out. Don't mess with her." Like my dad is actually a really chill guy. Like he's not like a crazy strict parent, doesn't let me do anything, you know. He's pretty cool. He's just a man out in the world.
Yeah, Audrey, she matured. She's so quickly, it seemed like. I remember in first grade, I was taking her first day of school, and I was going to get a hug and a kiss, and she was like, "Dad, she's like, she's very self-aware in first grade, you know, like first day of school.
Yeah.
But,
Audrey reminded me of a story when Abby, I guess it was, I don't know if it's freshman, sophomore year in high school, then there was a teenage party somewhere and it got busted. And everybody in her class thought that she had told me and that I told the cops to go bust it.
Oh my gosh.
That's stuck. It's still stuck. Okay. It's still there. So, I was called a snitch. So.
Oh my gosh.
and you didn't even snitch.
No, I didn't even know what was going on.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, she wasn't invited.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Well, that's the worst. If you know, get called a snitch, you didn't even snitch. You know.
Yeah.
So.
That's why I was so mad.
I think I tell her that I was like, I didn't know anything about that, and if I did, I probably wasn't too concerned about it when I was off duty. So
right. Yeah. I think kind of like what you were saying, Audra. My dad, he's a chill guy, and people will say at the same time, they're like, "Oh, your dad's a police officer," blah blah. But then they meet him, and they're like, "This dude's awesome."
I'm just a normal guy that likes the Allman Brothers band.
You do like the Allman Brothers, yeah. Well, do we have anything else we want to say, or any stories you want to tell, or no? Well, I guess that is that'll be the end of this episode of Chief, Cap, and Chap minus the Chap. We need to get Jason back in here. So we did Mother's Day. We did a recap of what's going on in the department, and really, you guys out there watching watching us, give us a shout out, an email at chief.cap.chap@gmail.com. let us hear from you. You know, tell us what you think and any show ideas or anything like that. But until then, I guess we're going to call this one another episode down, and
Always take the high road.
always take the high road. That's what we say here, and do. We try to, anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys. We'll see you next time.